Over a decade ago, a study found if a fire started, Grizzly Flats would be in severe danger.
It would pretty much wipe out our community within 24 hours.
A promise was made to protect this community, but was not kept.
Somebody dropped the ball. Somebody didn't do their job.
On August 14th, 2021, the Caldor fire ignited.
I thought, oh, this is not a good spot for a fire.
What came was what many regard as a series of failures.
You know Grizzly's going to burn from your maps and from all your models you've already made.
You know, it's the most horrible thing that's ever happened to me, that's for sure.
You need the tape measure?
Well, this was inherited from my mother, who inherited from her parents, you know, they inherited from my great-grandparents. So this was my life.
Roots in Grizzly Flats run deep.
My great-grandparents bought the homestead in 1910.
His cousin Candace lives a stone throw away, raising the 6th generation of this Grizzly Flats family.
Our hearts are here. This is all we've ever known is Grizzly.
With just over 1,400 residents, this mountain town is surrounded by thousands of acres of El Dorado National Forest.
Grizzly is a place of serenity.
But mountain living is not easy.
It's not for the faint of heart. So we depend on each other and help each other, which brings you closer as a community.
Locals here have a bond, and what's regarded as the pillar of their community is not the church or school.
We wanted to be part of the community, and when you're part of the community, you go to the fire meeting.
But the Fire Safe Council.
We have one of the best fire safe councils in the nation.
Basically, it's a group of community volunteers that work together to help make the community as safe as possible.
We go to sleep, worried about fire, and wake up, worried about fire.
In fact, a warning from the United States Forest Service was why the Fire Safe Council was formed in the first place.
They had a computerized fire model that showed if a fire ever started in the middle fork of the Cosumnes River drainage, it would pretty much wipe out our community within 24 hours.
To protect the community, the Fire Safe Council formed in April 2004. And in 2011, the U.S. Forest Service made a promise to help protect Grizzly by way of a project.
And so we have been executing and we've been implementing a few projects in the area, including the Trestle Project.
The Trestle Project aimed to reduce fire fuel and fire threat to 16,000 acres around Grizzly Flats. But on August 14th, 2021, the fire started exactly where the Forest Service predicted.
Right where the crosshairs now is burning onto the National Forest.
And it was just a little plume of smoke on Saturday night.
I figured by the time we woke up Sunday morning, it would be under control. It would be fine.
Because it ignited in a hard-to-reach canyon in the El Dorado National Forest, the U.S. Forest Service was responsible for managing how to fight it.
I ran a quick model, a fire fuels model on it.
It was something that caught the eye of retired firefighter Grant Ingram, who now runs a fire mapping business.
I thought, oh, this is not a good spot for a fire.
His map showed the fire was only 3.5 miles from Grizzly Flats. Alarmed, he went to the U.S. Forest Service's website to look at their briefing map, their plan of how to fight the fire.
And the Forest Service had posted the wrong map on there.
From Ingram's own maps, he knew this fire had the potential to become dangerous and fast.
And that made the hair go up on the back of my head, thinking, okay, if they can't even get the map right on this thing, what is the rest of this fire going to do?
The fire started on August 14th and still was burning 2 days later.
That's when we started getting pretty scared.
As time passed and the fire grew, so did that fear.
Caldor, I see you said 30 to 40 acres.
When it grows to 40 acres overnight, that means something was wrong, that something wasn't being done.
On the night of August 16th, 48 hours after it first ignited, the Caldor fire exploded in acreage. This was the start of what became one of the largest fires in California history, burning nearly 222,000 acres. But its first victim was Grizzly Flats.
The ash was like silver dollars coming down, pretty frantic. And at that moment, that's when I made the decision, we have to go.
Yet even during their evacuation, residents said there was no sign of a firefight.
It's just silent, and the sound of houses exploding.
Nobody showed up. There was nobody come out to help us.
Ingram has put his decades of firefighting expertise to work since the Caldor fire, investigating what exactly happened in the nights leading up to Grizzly burning.
When you look at an accident that occurs or an incident like this, it's lots of pieces that build up into the final result. And that final result was the town of Grizzly Flat getting destroyed.
Grizzly Flats residents and elected leaders told us they believe Grizzly Flats burned because of a series of mismanagement by the U.S. Forest Service's leadership.
We sent every resource that we could to initial attack. We initiated direct attack, full suppression, just like we've done all year.
Ingram disagrees. He discovered a number of failures by the U.S. Forest Service leadership, like fire crews being sent down washed-out roads that should have been maintained by the U.S. Forest Service.
No roads inaccessible, complete washout, trees down. We got heavy trees down, and it's going to be a challenging access. We're going to need the dozers.
Causing long delays to get to the fire.
And it is inaccessible, even for a pickup truck.
The map they sent doesn't have a road name.
If you're responsible for that forest, you should know what roads are open, what roads are closed, where the washouts are.
You take the road to the left, and then the next road to the left, you could almost get to the fire. Yeah, Camino, I copy. That road is not there.
The U.S. Forest Service should especially know this area because of their own studies done for the Trestle project, Ingram says.
Yeah, I don't want to have everybody head in the wrong direction again.
That is not acceptable. You can't spend, thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a fuel study and then ignore it when the fire occurs.
We showed these findings to the U.S. Forest Service.
Yeah, Camino, I copy. That road is not there.
Why were those roads not maintained by the U.S. Forest Service?
We have thousands of roads on the El Dorado National Forest, and the maintenance of those roads is a challenge. And with the limited funding that we have available, we're not able to get everywhere.
But when it came to fighting the fire, Ingram says as it grew out of control, management released crews.
Hey, 5111, you can return to quarters. You may release.
And they just went home. And I couldn't believe it.
Camino, engine 365 is returning to Sierra Springs via Elmo Ranch.
The U.S. Forest Service did not know about these crews until we asked them during our interview. And following that interview, they emailed us a detailed account telling a different story, claiming no crews were released without reason. But Ingram says no matter which way you look at it, massive miscommunication hindered their fight.
And at the same time, I'm hearing traffic about how if we don't catch this tonight, it's going to be a really big deal.
We're going to need everything we have today. Yeah, we have conflicting stories. 8600 said it was for tomorrow.
The process of fighting a fire in the middle of the night is challenging and is chaotic. I can't speak to what kind of communication challenges they had.
But challenges continued even with basic firefighting needs.
The Forest Service chief came on the radio and said they're not allowed to use dip sites, where the water is, that are not approved.
Regarding that dip site, it would be preferable if we could utilize some water that's already located on Forest Service land. Is that a possibility?
So they further hampered themselves in their firefighting by doing that.
What's your response to that?
It's a tactical question you'd have to ask the incident management team at the time.
It was the same answer we got when we asked why firefighting crews were not sent to Grizzly Flats until nearly 3 days after the fire started.
I can't speak to the tactics of the incident management team that was in charge at the time. I do think that speaks, though, to the broader challenge that we had in that year, which was a lack of availability of resources.
He says they were stretched thin between the Dixie and Monument fire.
There were no other firefighters available to us to send those first few days.
When crews did get to Grizzly Flats, it was too late.
Code 3, immediate need for structure protection to the community of Grizzly Flats.
Why they didn't have equipment immediately sent to Grizzly Flat to help prep the structures prior to the fire getting there, I don't know.
630 homes destroyed. Grizzly Flats post office, school, church, and even the fire station also fell victim. But what does remain is frustration.
Somebody dropped the ball.
Many say the U.S. Forest Service has remained reclusive when it comes to answering questions about the Caldor fire. And as we were sitting down for our interview, Scott Rogers mentioned how answering these questions can be difficult.
It's hard. Our data systems just don't speak well to these questions more often than not.
But during the interview, he mentioned this.
We've provided responses to all of the media requests that we've had around the Caldor fire. And
our interview with them was one of the first times they've sat down on camera to answer questions that we brought directly from Grizzly Flats locals.
Why? Why were we let to burn?
But perhaps the biggest question of all came after a discovery that the Trestle Project, the U.S. Forest Service's own promise to help protect Grizzly Flats, was never finished.
The completion date was originally set for 2020.
But only 15% of the Trestle Project was completed in the 10 years since it was formed.
We feel betrayed. We do. That's the only word I can think of. Just betrayed.
We have numerous projects that are ongoing across the El Dorado National Forest and across Placerville District.
He blames a lack of resources, funding, and manpower.
It was one of our top priorities on our program of work, both for the forest as well as for the district.
But yet only 15% was finished during that time.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't complete more of it by the start of the Caldor fire. We certainly would have liked to have done that.
It was their own study that said we need to clean up in this area because of these factors.
To him, the Fire Safe Council and Grizzly Flats community did their part.
However, the Forest Service didn't live up to their side of the bargain.
And yet, there's no consequence.
If you're a private homeowner and you don't clean up your property, you can be fined. You can lose your fire insurance. If you're the federal government and you don't clean up your property, there's nothing that will happen to you.
I think the reality of the fire crisis that we've seen across the West here, and especially in the state of California, is larger than just the Forest Service. It's in response to climate change, it's in response to severe drought.
Locals we spoke with said these excuses don't justify poor leadership.
I just want the firefighters on the ground to know that what I have to say is not against them, and they are true heroes. However, the management agency, the management component of that needs to change, and it needs to change fast because this is going to occur again.
From 94, 1916, 1961, 1943, and how these last three fires that we have are the largest fires in El Dorado County.
El Dorado Supervisor George Turnbull is frustrated with the U.S. Forest Service as well as another federal agency.
President Biden was here. He said that he was going to help the residents of Grizzly Flat, and he hasn't done it.
About 25% of those people don't have homeowners insurance. So what are we going to do for those people? Thank you.
But individual assistance from FEMA has been denied 3 times now to Grizzly Flat survivors, despite it being common for most wildfires.
We've just been left in the dark. There's been no assistance from anybody.
This type of assistance is something that could be life-changing. Yet in a statement, FEMA said Grizzly Flats victims' needs were not severe enough to warrant individual assistance.
Because they took the value of all of El Dorado County.
This includes vastly wealthier areas that have a different lifestyle than Grizzly Flats.
Well, you're talking about a poverty-stricken community.
To pinch pennies, Lucas got rid of his fire insurance just 5 months before the Caldor fire.
I'm living on $900 a month. Fire insurance boosted our homeowners insurance up to $3,500 a year.
And if FEMA were given, what would that mean to you? Would that make a big impact in what you're able to do?
I think it would make it financially a lot easier. I got to do all the labor myself.
Many moved away. Rebuilding is just too expensive.
So this is where our deck would have been and was.
Toby Madsen is restoring a restaurant, what will be known as the Grizzly Den.
I think this is going to pay off, and this is, it's worth more. You know, giving back a little bit more and bringing something for the community will make me happier too, because nobody likes to sit in a fifth wheel.
It's something he knows well. He and his 2 teenagers and fiance are living in a trailer on their property. Same as the Tylers.
We've been living in our trailer now for a year and a few months with 2 kids.
Yet they feel lucky. Others in Grizzly Flats are living in tents.
I guess my question then would be, why stay?
Because it's home. Because it's home.